Now let's think about the book we just read. What are some things that the brother and the sister had to share in the story? They had to share some juice, cupcakes, a pizza, and what did the mom say every time they had to share something? They had to make sure they had the exact same amount. Today we are going to be talking about partitioning shapes, and I know that's a super strong word, and we're going to talk about what partitioning means. But first, let's say it together. Ready? Partitioning. So partition, what does that mean? Let's read our definition first. Partition, dividing a shape into equal parts. I hear a word in there that we know from a lot of our math lessons. This word is equal. Now, what does equal mean? We talked about it last week when we talked about the sides of a square being the exact same, equal length. We talked about how rectangles have two equal sides. We talked about it when we were measuring. We had to make sure things had the same length. We talked about it when we were comparing numbers. We had to make sure they had the same value for them to be equal. So we're talking about equal again. We are going to be dividing a shape into equal parts. We have to make sure they are the exact same size. So one of the things that the brother and the sister ate or had to share in the story was a pizza. If you have a whole pizza, what shape is it? It is a circle. So I have a circle right here, and look at this circle. What can we do to make sure we have equal parts of this circle? What's something we could do? I'm thinking we could fold the circle, and if we fold the circle and then cut down the line we made, then I will have two pieces that are the exact same size. If they're the exact same size, what are they? They are equal. So I have two pieces of my circle that are equal. They're the exact same size. Now, I want to talk about what word we could use to describe these two pieces of our circle. We already know they're equal. Another word we could use, and these words are right here on our chart, half or halves. So this piece is half of our whole circle. Now we have two halves of our whole circle. So we have one half and a second half. So we have two halves. I'm going to add our two halves of a circle under that word so we know what the word half or halves. So a half or a halves are an equal part of a whole. So we know our whole is the whole circle, and when we partitioned it into two pieces, we have two equal pieces that are two halves to make a whole. Now, how can we do this with a rectangle? Let's see. I have a rectangle right here. What could I do again to make sure they're equal parts? I could fold my rectangle, and now I have a line. And if you have a piece of paper at home, maybe you could try this with a piece of paper since a piece of paper is a rectangle, or you can cut out some circles and try. So I see that my rectangle has a line down it. I can cut it to make sure I have equal parts. And now what can I call each of these parts? We can call them half or two halves. Alrighty, I have our two pieces of a rectangle. Now this rectangle, I decided to cut horizontally. So I'll cut it the long way. Is there another way that I could have cut this rectangle to get equal parts or two halves? How could I cut it? Let's look at another rectangle. Here I have another rectangle. Now the other rectangle right here, I cut horizontally. How else could I cut this rectangle? I could fold it again vertically, and then I can cut down the middle on the line and get two equal parts. Now what are our equal parts called of a whole? A half. So now I have my half, and we can add them to our chart. So today we read a book about a brother and a sister who had to share some things, and they had to make sure they had the same amount or it wouldn't have been fair. And now we started talking about partitioning shapes. So we were super careful to make sure that we cut our shapes, or we divided our shapes into equal parts. Now you are going to go to Seesaw and you are going to have an activity where you have some circles and some rectangles, and you are going to carefully draw on the shapes to break them into equal parts, to partition them into equal parts. I can't wait to see your work.